dog. I'ma dive on the floor, go try to block every shot, and I'ma be physical with you the whole game. You know Stu gonna be physical with you. When you think of the Pistons, you think it's just hard work and just gritty basketball. That's just the identity you gotta have when you put on that jersey.
I'm not your average breed of canine. Not a good dog, I'm bad boy for life. I set the tone, don't care about no tick. Let it be known, I get my respect. Come in the lane and see I don't bluff. If you retaliate, that's on ya. Talking pundits, I hear your shade. Talking that shop, you must run this way. Put the dog palm, mess around, find out, Put the dog palm, mess around, find out, For some barbecue sauce, boy, you better crop a hill, cause I'm like that. When you're real for some barbecue sauce, boy, you better crop a hill, cause I'm like that. The dog palm, mess around, find out.
What up, though, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Downtown Deuce Show. Hope everybody is having a good night so far on this rainy Wednesday evening here in Michigan. Tonight, we are joined by none other than Pistons beat writer and journalist for the Detroit Free Press, Omari Sankofa. Omari, welcome to the show, bro. We finally got a chance to link up, man.
Hey, happy to be here, Deuce. Appreciate you for having me on, man.
Absolutely, man. First of all, bro, how is your offseason going? Have you had a chance to kind of disconnect from the world for a minute and kind of recharge your batteries before next season?
Not yet. That's coming up. I'm off like 3 or 4 weeks in August and then a little bit of time in like early September too. So it's like coming up. So
yeah,
like you know those last few days are like the last days of school where you could just take a break. Like that's where I'm at right now. Like I'm like right there. So
got it on your calendar, got it all checked off, ready to go.
All checked off, man.
For sure. Well, we appreciate you being here and appreciate all your great work, man.
Appreciate that.
For sure. This is your first time on the show. So I kind of wanted to just kind of go through some main storylines from last season and a couple things from this offseason. I know you got a few engagements you got to take care of, so we'll try to get you in and out quickly. Summer League. Let's start with Summer League, bro. Any Summer League takeaways that you have had, right? We know the Pistons wrapped up about a week and a half ago. For me personally, I'll let you know there are a few guys who stood out to me. Obviously Ron, but you got guys like Dennis Jenkins, Bobby Clinton, Chaz Lanier, even Tolu Smith at times having their moments. So from your point of view, what were some of the biggest takeaways that you had from Summer League?
I would say really just, I think in any Summer League, you want the, I guess, quote unquote, Summer League vets to look like vets. You want them to come in and set the tone essentially and dominate. And I think that's what they got from Ron, first and foremost. I mean, it was around 24, 8 rebounds, like 4 steals, like shot the three pretty well. So he more or less checked every single box you would want to see. Even had some nice playmaking moments, even though they were turnovers too. But like I think he checked every box you would want to see. And then you mentioned Dennis Jenkins and Tolu Smith, the two-way guys who were pretty good for the Motor City Cruise last season. And then I mean they came in and like I don't think either of them had a single off night or even a single possession where they didn't just completely bring it.
Right.
Tolu, stuffed the stat sheet. Like I thought Dennis really locked in defensively, did all the point guard stuff you want to see, but I think most important offensively, besides just his ball control, was that he shot it pretty well. So those 3 guys specifically like stood out the most. And like I said, like that's what you want to see from guys who are there for the second time.
For sure. Of those guys that you mentioned, other than Ron, obviously, who do you think has the best chance of possibly carving out a role with the Pistons going into next season, if anybody?
I would say Tolu, just because I think they're not quite as deep at center as they are in the backcourt. And I mean, obviously, you have Cade, you have J.I., you've got Karras, you've got Sass, even Duncan can handle the ball a little bit.
Right.
So it's just tough to see where those minutes would come from for Dennis. But I think Tolu being like a really solid, like 6'10", 6'11", just did everything pretty solid, like rebounded, like he's got some touch around the rim. Like I thought he had some good defensive moments. If you ever have a stint where Paul Reed or like whoever it is hurt and you need another third big, then
Right.
I think Tolu's probably shown enough that you could probably give him a go and see how he looks in those minutes. So I think just a matter of opportunity. It's just I think things lined up for Tolu a little bit more.
That's a great point you made about the need, because there are a lot of talented guys in this league, a summer league. But for this team, I think you make a good point because a lot of people have been clamoring for the Pistons to go get a big, things like that. So I think a guy like that who has a skill set, who can do a lot of the things you're talking about, as far as just manning the paint, being that interior presence, like you mentioned, I think that could be really, really important. So that's a good take for sure, bro. Let's talk about a few individual guys on this roster that a lot of people are looking forward to watching next season. Let's start with Cade, right? Last season, Cade officially arrived, right? From the national media perspective, at least, he arrived. He had a career year, averaging 26, 9 and 6, All-NBA third team, first All-Star game, top 15 player of the league. Been a rough go for him the first few years, right? But, after 3 years of trying to really right the ship and not jumping off the boat like he always talked about, it seems like team success is really starting to finally catch up with and highlight his individual play. So it's established now that he's one of those guys, right? So, but with all of that though, bro, all of these young guys have room to grow, right? Are there any areas that you would like to see Cade work on to take his game to even another gear and the team to another gear next season?
I think the big thing with Cade is just, like I would say, and it sounds bad. I don't mean it in a bad way, but I think the conditioning aspect, like there's a difference between being in great shape and like being in, like, you're doing everything that's being asked of you on both sides of the ball.
Right.
And I think for a lot of players that are being asked to do a lot, like obviously there's sort of a physical limit that you hit, but that's what Cade's even talked about, just coming back next season. Stronger, like just whatever you could do conditioning wise, just to kind of hit that next level. Like I thought his shot looked a little bit flat in the playoffs. So I think some of that's just, the Knicks are throwing their entire defense at him just at the end of the season. And like you're being asked to do a lot, right? So you've got to be in like Herculean shape to kind of carry that Herculean load, which he's in great shape, but there's like just this extra tier he can get to. And I think if that happens, then I think that honestly kind of fixes a lot of the issues. Like I think some of the decision-making lapses he has are like, fatigue related. I think the shooting inconsistency is fatigue related. Like beyond that, like just his natural growth trajectory, like I think it's pretty clear. Like he's going to continue to shoot the ball better, going to continue to, figure out the correct reads. And as the Pistons get more talent around him, like certain things will get easier as well. So, you said it, like he's established now. He's got the All-NBA under his belt, and everybody knows who he is, what he can do. So, you've just got to come in next season and just be tip top in every facet from the jump, but then also figure out how to maintain that over the course of a season, which, I think is a process for any guy who's being asked to do what he's being asked to do.
You're 100%. I totally agree, bro. Like the conditioning piece, especially with him wanting JB saying that they want him to be a two-way player, two-way guy, right? So like you mentioned, that's going to be important in the fourth game, in the fourth quarter of games, right down the stretch. So I think just him having that willingness to commit to the defensive end is going to require him, like you say, to have that conditioning to still be able to perform offensively on the other end. So totally agree with you there too, bro. Good take, man. Let's move on to Ausar Thompson. Ausar Thompson, man. My nickname for him, bro, is Tasmanian Thompson because he just impacts the game. He wreaks havoc like everywhere, all on the court. And he just makes plays with athleticism that you just don't see every day. And I've also called him the backbone of the defense. I feel like when he's out of the game, the defensive resistance is felt the most. You can just kind of feel the difference when he's not on the court, right? So what do you think are some realistic expectations for him going into next season, having now a full offseason, not having to miss 8 months, of basketball activity with the blood clot like he did last year? What do you think is realistic for him going into next year?
You kind of assume that he can only go up from here, right? Like he's had to overcome one of the more difficult things I think you could go through as an athlete, which is not just an injury, but a blood clot situation that just kind of leaves you in limbo until it's resolved. And obviously the type of injury that, or ailment that you don't expect to ever have to deal with. So, you mentioned it, but he lost all of last offseason. His rookie season ended in March, and then he didn't get back on the court. Back on the NBA court at least until the end of November. So that's 6-7 months of just no basketball activity. like right when he was really finding his stride as a rookie too. And I think by the end of last season, once he got his win back, once he got the rhythm back and all that stuff, he just dived right, back into play, essentially 3.5, 4 weeks after he was cleared. You began to see, like, I think that next level where, okay, like he's an absolutely elite defender. Just his activity around the rim, like really on both ends, the secondary playmaking. And then you combine that with an entire offseason of, like you could just only imagine the growth from there, whether it's ball handling, whether it's being able to knock down a few more threes or even a few more free throws. It's just all sorts of directions his game can grow. I think it's even tough to predict exactly what version we're going to see of him next season, but you know that the defense is going to continue to be elite. The athleticism, just the various ways he impacts the game with his playmaking and rebounding, and like really anything else he can just add offensively, whether that's, just finishing a little bit better or, being able to hit free throws once you get to the line or like whatever it is. I think with what he's already done, it's just going to grow exponentially from there. So, it's not telling what to expect, but again, you're talking about a guy who's just had very unideal circumstances up until now. So, so you can only imagine what that's going to look like now that he actually has some momentum.
I think he's one of the guys where he's the guy where he hasn't really mastered anything yet, but he still has a crazy impact. I don't know how many guys who haven't really mastered any facet of the game, but still just elevates your team in so many different ways. And I think he's one of those guys. You mentioned the shooting. Everybody talks about the shooting. We get it. But you've been up close and personal with him and Fred Vinson. Have you seen any strides being made with him as far as just his mechanics or his consistency or even his confidence?
Yeah, I think like over the course of, a season or two, you see adjustments. You see that they're trying to get his form more compact, get it off quicker, all that types of stuff. I think it's tough to really kind of quantify the improvements until you see it in like live game action. But I could say I've seen Ausar, take, probably several hundred threes, just sort of idly watching like after practices and whatnot, if I had to just ballpark it. And like, it's something he works on, something that's a big priority. That's just one aspect of the game. Like, some guys can learn it. Like for some guys, it's just you either have it or you don't. I think with the touch he's shown, like, there's enough for you to think that it's something that he can build on. But we'll just have to see.
Yeah. Let's get to Ron Holland, bro. Ron Holland, for me, last season exceeded all expectations. Coming into his rookie year, I said it often. He made a believer out of me very early. It didn't take long for me to really see that this guy was for real. Back in January of this year, I said that the way he looked then was how I was hoping he would look by the end of the season. Just the way he was able to impact games so early in the season. Sometimes rookies, it takes time to get used to the 82-game season, the rookie wall, yada, 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 right? But he came in like making an impact. Even though his shooting wasn't there, he still found ways to be impactful for this team that they couldn't keep him off the floor. From your point of view, is it fair to say that Trajan Langdon and JB Bickerstaff were surprised with how quickly he was able to kind of get up to speed to the NBA game?
I don't want to say surprised, but I think, obviously you have a guy who came in at 18 years old and, that season he was coming off of the G League Ignite was unideal for a lot of reasons, not because of him, but just because of the surrounding, program and environment. So you don't set expectations on a guy like that, but you're also not, necessarily expecting that he's going to be somebody that you're leaning on for 15 to 20 minutes a night. And that's what ended up happening. I think he only averaged really just around 15 minutes a night, but he played 81 of 82. And like you always noticed him when he was on the floor, which I think just speaks to why he continues to get minutes, because he just kind of has like an innateness to his game where he just sort of appears in the right spots at the right times, and his effort is relentless. Like he was already able to give you a little bit of something on defense just with his size and length and sheer effort. And then you kind of see glimpses of his ability to get downhill and his touch at the rim and stuff like that. And it's like the more you watch him, it's like, okay, like he is still figuring out what he's doing, right? Like it's sort of like two things going on where it's like he's very clearly young and a rookie and figuring things out, but he also just keeps figuring things out. Yeah. And that's kind of what it was. It's like he's figuring things out pretty quickly, and then you put that with a full off season and him getting older. Like he just turned 20 a couple weeks ago, so still pretty young, and I mean, that growth trajectory for him is going to be pretty big too. So, I mean, that's just the main thing that stood out last season is that like he just kept forcing the issue and like kept getting minutes just because he kept finding ways to make an impact.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It seems like whenever they would continue to put more and more on his plate, he would just continue to eat. You know, he never really seemed over, even with, and I know it's just summer league, but even with summer league, you saw him getting more opportunities, more responsibility, things like that, ball handling, initiating offense, making plays, and he seemed just fine. It didn't seem like it was overwhelming. He wasn't turning the ball over a ton. You mentioned he did it here and there, but he didn't seem overwhelmed. And I think that just kind of speaks to what his ceiling could be. Certain guys are very good in very specific roles, and when you try to give him more, it's like that they start making mistakes and overthinking. He doesn't seem like that kind of guy. He seems like he has the ability and the confidence to be able to say, okay, this is the task. Much like JB with Cade last year. Give him, challenge him. Okay, I can do that. Okay, I can do that. Ron seems to be one of those guys, and I think that's really what, for me, gives him so high of a ceiling. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, like, and you look at his build too, like 6'8", like he's got good wingspan. Like, there's just a lot of prototypical stuff. Like, I think you want like a modern wing that he has and that he's already shown.
Yeah.
I mean, so you could throw out whatever comparison you want, but you've seen over the years the trend of young athletic wings who come in, and some of them don't figure it out, but the ones who do, like when they pop, like they really, really pop. So, like that's the hope with Ron long term is that he can just continue to build on what he showed as a rookie, and and then once he really begins to figure things out, and once he begins to knock down shots, then you're going to see that trajectory just go up even more exponentially from there.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Let's move to the starting and backup power forward position for a minute. Obviously, the power forward position, the starting role, has been a hot button for Pistons Twitter the last few months. It's clear as of right now that Tobias Harris is going to be the starting four, but that does make the Pistons a little bit small up front. We know Tobias is a warrior. He's a vet, smart guy, great off the court guy. But he's 6'8". When I look around the East, bro, I see the Cavs, right? I see the Knicks, the Bucks, who just added Miles Turner, right? The Hawks got Porzingis, the Magic. Like, I see all these teams who are likely to be in contention next year. I could see them kind of giving the Pistons a few problems with their size. But how do you see it? How do you think the Pistons could stack up, match up against those teams, especially in the playoffs as currently constructed?
Yeah, I mean, and we saw it in the playoffs, obviously, with Cat and Mitchell Robinson, and just, I mean, you've got two the legit 7-foot guys who can just dictate the physicality of the game, and that's tough to match up against. I mean, and they didn't have Isaiah Stewart, so that was obviously a big part of it. So,
right.
That's not a direct comparison to what it'll look like next season. But
True.
Overall, you're right in that, I mean, the best teams of the East, are all for the most part pretty big teams. And, that's something that the Pistons are going to have to figure out how to solve. So whether or not you solve that with the backup four, like, I think that's probably, for one, you kind of look at what's out there, and like there are guys who can check a few boxes for you. Like, Chris Boucher can rebound. He's got some athleticism, can knock down threes. We saw what Trey Lyles could do a few years ago.
Yeah.
Can knock down threes. But now those guys are really going to address the size aspect of it, right? Because you still need shooting there too. So they've got two open roster spots, and they've got to get to 14 players. They're at 13 now.
Okay.
So. We'll see which way they go, whether they decide they need a little bit more size, or if they just go get a four and then figure things out. But the other thing too is that you have that trade exception, so
right,
so that gives you flexibility in the middle of the season. If all of a sudden you're like, like we can't handle Porzingis, like we can't deal with the Bucks, like we just need to get another big dude in here. So they've got some flexibility, but I don't know if you could check that size box with that backup four spot. You're probably gonna have to do an additional move to figure that out.
Yeah, you make a good point about size. You mentioned the backup four role. So we've been talking a little bit here and there. I've said this. I've voiced this on your podcast with Bryce. Shout out to you guys. Make sure y'all go follow him. You got them guys over there for sure. I'm a big Bobby Clement guy, right? I've been a big Bobby guy since the beginning of summer league last year, and I feel like placed in the right situation, he could be effective, put in that Simone Fontecchio role as far as just being able to knock down shots, rebound the basketball, play solid team defense, and then playmaking here and there in space when he gets the opportunity, playing maybe, let's just say, for example, he's playing with Isaiah Stewart off the bench, right? We know Bobby's not a guy who's going to break you down top of the key. He needs a screen or he needs a dribble handoff to be able to get some space. I think playing with a guy like Stu, one of the best screeners in the league, could really help his game as far as being able to get 2 feet into the paint And once he gets there, his processing speed is great. He's got great timing. He's on target, on time with his passing. I think he could be great in that role. How do you kind of see that potentially working? Do you think he could eventually work his way up to that backup for a spot, or what do you think there?
I think I think with his skill set, he could absolutely make a case for himself. Like you mentioned, the passing, and like he's just genuinely a really strong playmaker. At 6'10", and
Yeah.
I think I agree that you put him, with some NBA players, like some guys that can really shoot, cut. You're really going to see that aspect of his game blossom a little bit more than I think you could see it in the G League or even in Summer League, even though it's been evident in both of those settings as well. And he's a legit 6'10" too. I do think he's a guy that conceivably could give you some size up front if you're lacking. I think the swing skill for him is just the three. He shot not great in the G League last season. He shot okay at Australia. He shot pretty well at Wake Forest.
Yeah.
His shot failed in Summer League, but it's kind of seesawed. So if he can get that pretty consistent, then I think that's probably going to be the swing skill for him going forward.
Got you for sure. And we'll keep an eye on that going forward into the season, things like that for sure. All right, two more things, bro, and I'll get you out of here. I know you got time constraints. Let's talk about Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey. Hot topic as of right now. Both of those guys are extension eligible. They're both up for possible rookie extensions. A lot of speculation about which of those guys is going to sign, who's not, or who's going to better themselves and play the season out. I know no one truly knows yet. Nobody knows for sure. But what do you think the likelihood is that possibly both of those guys are extended this offseason going into next season?
I think there's a good likelihood. I think you can just look around the league at how teams have kind of handled restricted free agency. And more often than not, teams have preferred to extend their own guys, especially players like, J.I. and J.D. who aren't going to command the max, but you can still probably find some number in the middle that can make both parties happy.
Right.
We saw Houston do it with Cam Whitmore, and then we just saw him do it with Jabari Smith Jr. as well. Also with not Cam Whitmore, Jalen Green.
Right.
With with that 3-year deal that he was extended to. And Şengün, I think Şengün signed for all 5 years. I don't know if he got the max, but you can kind of thread the needle with that. And I think you see, with guys who probably weren't as valued with their teams that end up in restricted free agency, like, Cam Thomas and Jonathan Kuminga and Josh Giddey, like these guys are still on the market. And it's almost August. It's just a bad spot for a player to be. And, if you're a team and you really value that player, I think you're probably less likely or less inclined to want to go through that process unless the negotiation is just extremely rigid and you can't find any negotiating room. But I think there's I say all that to say I think there's a good chance that they both end up getting extended. I think that's just rationally that's just the better outcome for both parties. Maybe one or both of those guys is like, you know what, I think I want to bet on myself, and then that would be that. But just based on league trends, just based on the feeling, I think there's a good chance that they end up signing those extensions. So we'll see.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off. You made a great point about how, a lot of guys who are still kind of holding out is because the situation is so rigid. We heard Cam Thomas saying he feels like he's really being undervalued right now. Yeah. Coming out and say, so the frustration is there for sure. And then we've heard Trajan Langdon say over and over again, the core, the young guys. We're investing in the young guys. We're believing in the young guys. We're building around the margins. Everything he has said up to this point has been about the core. So with that being said, I don't see how he isn't going to be willing to try to meet these guys in the middle. And then you got guys like Jaden who's got roots here. He loves to be here. It just makes sense, I think, for both of those guys to resign at a reasonable price. I think somewhere between 20-25 a year will be reasonable, considering their injury history and things like that, which isn't their fault, but it is what it is. So I'm hoping both of those guys are here because I really think that, this young core has really still just kind of scratched the surface with injuries and not getting the consistency and all that. So, yeah, I'm with you. I definitely think it's possible, and I hope it happens. All right, let's go to our last point here, and then we will get you out here, bro. We talked about it a little bit already, but the Pistons roster is going to look a little bit different going into next year. They lost some key guys, right? Malik Beasley, at least for now. Tim Hardaway Jr., Dennis Schroeder, Simone Fontecchio. Those guys are gone, and the Pistons have added Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson this offseason. So I know we didn't add the same amount of guys that we lost, but I also think that addition by subtraction can kind of play a role here. Do you think the Pistons got better this offseason compared to where they were last offseason?
I don't know if they clearly got better, but like I think if anything, they probably stayed about even. Just as far as role players, I think Duncan Robinson, like he's an elite shooter. I think he could replicate a lot of what you got from Malik Beasley. Karras, like I think he kind of addresses some of the needs for shot making in that second unit and then some ball handling as well. Yeah. Like people can debate if these players are better or worse than the role players they had last season, but I think overall, like they checked the same boxes with the players they went and got this offseason. And none of these guys were going to like swing the season by themselves anyway. It was always going to be about Cade and the growth of the other guys. So I don't think they got worse. I don't think they got substantially better. I think they're just right where they were in a position where they're trying to get better and they're going to need their young guys to carry them to that point.
Right. You can push back on this if you feel you need to. I feel like, at least from Trajan's point of view, it was mission accomplished. Because one thing I heard him say, I think you actually were the one that asked him this question, but he was just talking about the importance of having size, number one, and defensive versatility, number two. And I feel like with those two guys, and even though we know Duncan Robinson is not a great defender or anything, he has the size, and we know that Caris LeVert has that versatility on both sides of the court at 6'6", right? Duncan 6'7", as opposed to B's at 6'4". I think he's got a 6'7" wingspan, not bad, but you got Caris 6'6", 6'10" wingspan. So you can't teach those measurables. So I feel like at least he felt as if he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish as far as how this team looks. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I would say so, because the other takeaway from the Knicks is that they've got those long wings. So,
True.
It's tough to be, a small team against a big team like that. So,
True.
They didn't get bigger necessarily at center, but they got bigger overall. And that was something that they wanted to do.
For sure. Last one. You dropped an article today, which talked about Tim Hardaway Jr.'s conversation with Caris LeVert and how that kind of influenced him to sign here. But it also mentioned how Caris LeVert had a familiarity already. We talked about it a little bit in our last show. I'd like to get your take on that as far as what really sold Caris on the Pistons. And make sure you guys go read this article too. I'll put a link in the description. You guys can go check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the familiarity. Tim Hardaway Jr. obviously was a big part of the team last season, and he ended up going for a different opportunity, but like he could vouch for what took place here. And and Caris, I think, fits that personality-wise. Like he checks out a lot of boxes on the court, and and then JB, he played for JB at Cleveland as well. So I think he comes in with familiarity, and that made it a good fit for him.
For sure. Listen, bro, we appreciate you coming on for a few minutes, man, to keep us up to date with the latest Pistons news. We are looking forward to yet another year of great work from you. Got to have you back on the show at some point before the regular season, if you're game for that. And for those who are not already tapped in with you, how can we kind of keep up with you and what you're doing?
Yeah, if you can follow me on Twitter, like my handle's right here, first and last name, and then my work's on freep.com, and then podcast is the Pistons Post with Motor City Hoops, and that's on the main podcast networks. Okay, so y'all make sure y'all go check him out, man. Stay tapped in with everything Pistons. This is your guy. So, like I said, man, I appreciate you showing up, giving us a little bit of your time and kind of giving us a little bit of a deeper look from your perspective at what we can expect next season. Yeah, I appreciate you for having me. Absolutely, man. Have a good one. Talk to you soon. All right, talk soon. All right. All right, guys. So that was Omari Sankofa. We've been trying to do that for a while. So it's good to finally get him on. Very insightful. Does his homework. Going to give you nothing but the real. So it's good to have him on. Before we get out of here, guys, I want to shout you guys out for being here, as always. Didn't get a chance to do that in the beginning, as I usually do. So my apologies for that. But let's get to some comments here, and then we will call it a night. Detroit Drew says, "What up? What up, though? What's going on, Drew?" Devon says, "What up, haircut?" We talked about this last time. Conditioning is hard. Yeah. That's and Ashton is definitely been campaigning for that. He's been saying that he says it's gonna be scary hours next season. So definitely, obviously, Cade is in the lab. And guys are probably in the lab right now as we speak, just getting ready for next season. So I'm looking forward to seeing Cade's progression as well. Detroit Red says, "Deuce, what's going on, Detroit Red?" Sports Time says, "Zach Lowe has been showing a lot of love to Ausar and also Ivey lately. It's nice to see Pistons getting more and more." Yeah, you would. It's almost like they're listening to us, because we have our ear to the street as far as understanding and paying attention to this team, right? So it's just nice to see that
they're getting the respect they deserve, they're getting the attention they deserve, and they're getting the love they deserve. And hopefully that plays a part into those guys wanting to stay here. We know Jaden Ivey already has roots here, right? His father, Javen Hunter, played football. His mom, Neil Ivey, played for the Detroit Shock. Jaden's grandfather, James Hunter, played for the Detroit Lions. So there's a lot of history, at least for Jaden. And JD too. I think JD is a guy who now understands who he needs to be for this team. And I think, guys can get a little spoiled playing with Cade, right? We know they're great point guards in this league, but I don't know if there are too many guys out there that can keep JD involved in the offense the way a Cade Cunningham can. Just because of how big Cade is, his vision and his unselfishness. Once he's able to make a move and run the pick and roll and find JD, he's looking for him. So I really hope that things like that really play a part into those guys wanting to stay. And like I mentioned, and like Omari mentioned, a lot of times rookie extensions go sour or talks go sour because of the rigidity in, of the organization not wanting to really be reasonable or meet them in the middle, right? Or sometimes it's the other way. Sometimes guys think they're worth more than they really are based on market value and they want to bet on themselves and they regret it later and things like that. So a lot of different things can go into it, but I think that because Trajan is publicly saying over and over again that he wants to have these guys as basically the core. He wants to run with this core and he wants this core to be the focus. I think he's going to demonstrate that by doing his best to at least try to meet these guys in the middle. And these guys don't seem like greedy guys. They don't seem like selfish guys. They're team first guys. So of course they want to take care of themselves and their family, but they're not going to try to put the team in a bad spot, especially if they're trying to win. And both of these guys want to win. So I think it's going to work out. I think both of these guys are going to be on this team going into next season. I think they are going to be locked down. I think they're going to come to an agreement, and it would go a long way, I think, for this team if they were able to do that. So great point by Sports Time. Let's go to the next comment. What's going on, Shannon? Shannon says Ron Holland, the second, is a true Piston. You can tell by the way he carries himself. Yeah, all of at the ripe old age of 20 years old, Shannon. I think a lot of time we forget that. I forget that sometimes. We had Charles Hill, his trainer and developmental coach, on about a week ago. We were talking about that, just how he's so young. His ceiling is so high, but he carries himself like a grown man. He's very much sure of who he is and what he wants to be. And he's very quickly understanding what he needs to be for this team. So at 20 years old, just seeing him continue to be given more responsibility, like we talked about in Summer League, like last year, we know he was kind of in the Jimmy Butler role, Chicago Jimmy Butler role last year, right? Just being that defensive dog that eventually is going to build out their offense and polish their game offense. Tools already there. Now it's a matter of, letting your defense be your bread and butter. And along the way, season over season, add this, add that. And while maintaining the defense, because that's who they are at the core, right? Jimmy, that's who he is. He wants to defend. Ron at the core wants to defend. He can score, right? We see he can score. But for him, it's just going to be a matter of season over season, just building the offense out and then being given more opportunity to do so. Because we know last year he didn't really get a lot of opportunity to have the ball in his hands and to make plays. It was more so just defensively, just, making sure that he's locking down, he's bringing it every play. And he did a great job with that. So that, along with his shooting improving, is going to make him a very, very dangerous player for a long time in this league. Great comment, Shannon. Devon says trade deadline is when they should make a move for size in the future. That's where I'm at, Devon. That's exactly where I'm at. I don't think it's gonna I don't think anything's gonna happen between, I'll put it this way. I think the Pistons will more likely to make a move as we get closer and closer to the deadline. I think what we have right now is kind of what we're gonna go with, and I think that's okay. I think that's fine for sure. But I do think they have flexibility now if they want to be able to go out and make a move. And I think it would make more sense for them to kind of just stand pat and just evaluate what they have, unless a deal falls in your lap that you just can't turn down, right? I think it would make more sense for them to kind of stand pat going into the season and then seeing how everything looks, evaluating these guys, because you have until February 6th, I think, is when the trade deadline is, right? So you have time, you give yourself time between the start of the season and let's just say October. That gives you 4 or 5 months, going to the trade deadline to kind of see what you have over a big enough sample size to say, okay, we got to make this change. We got to do this. We're too small up front. We got to do this. We got to do that. I think going to the season as of right now, currently constructed, gives them a better opportunity to know what they need when they get to the trade deadline. But they have the option. They definitely have the option to go do it, and we'll see what happens with that. Devon also says, if they lock down J.I. and J.D., all they have to do is lock down Ausar. And then the sky is the limit for this team. This team could be nasty, really soon. The talent is there in the mentality. Yeah, 100%, Devon. Yeah, absolutely. I think they should do their best to keep all of these guys. I really do. And I think you figure out the rest later. It's like you get the talent and you figure out the rest later, right? If the talent isn't meshing, you have such an abundance of talent that you can go and pick and choose, what makes the most sense, where we kind of top heavy at this position. Are we top heavy at the guard and we're a little light, as far as our front court? Okay, we have the assets and we have the depth to be able to make a bigger move, while still not gutting our roster because we have depth that has the talent, right? So I think lock all these guys in. I think you lock all these guys in if you can do it. Of course, you want to stay away from the second apron, but I don't think that they will be anywhere near that if they still try to lock all these guys down based on their market value. I really don't think so. So I could be wrong. I'm not a guru or genius when it comes to contracts, but I know a little bit here and there. So I've been paying attention to it, and I really do think that they have an opportunity here to build something special if they lock their core down. So we'll see what happens with that. But Devon, I agree with you. Knight says, great stream. Appreciate you, bro. Got a few more comments and then we'll call it a night, guys. Mega Hustler 313 says, Karis LeVert, underrated signing. Bro, I just dropped a video yesterday about Karis LeVert and how I think he is the most important addition to this team. You guys make sure you go check that out. But a few things I was just saying is that just looking back at what Trajan Langdon always says, he said it over and over again. He wants size. He wants defensive versatility. He said it over and over again, right? Pretty much in an interview, any interview seen in the offseason, he said that. So you look at guys like Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson. Karis LeVert, 6'6", 6'10 wingspan, right? Duncan Robinson, 6'7", right? Bigger guys, bigger guards, bigger wings. The league is kind of going in that direction. Look at the Thunder, look at the Pacers, the two teams in the finals, right? They have depth and they have size. And that defensive versatility is what allows them to be able to do a lot of things defensively. So I really do think that Karis LeVert is going to be very, very important for this team next season. Also offensively, giving the Pistons 3 guards who can do multi-dimensional things as far as being able to score the basketball and facilitate for others, make for others, right? All 3 of those guys can do that. The last season, the Pistons only had 2. They had Cade and Jaden, or Cade and Schroeder. And Schroeder was only here because Jaden was not. Right. So it was just those 2. It was always those. It was Cade, Jaden, and Bees, or Cade, Schroeder, and Bees. But now we have 3 guys, Cade, Jaden, and LeVert, who can play either guard position, who can make plays for others, and who can make plays for themselves. And offensively, that makes you very hard to guard because you are very unpredictable. So that is why I think he is going to be very, very important for this team because he brings something that we didn't have last year. He's not the shooter of a Bees, right? Bees at 41%, LeVert at 37%, but 37 is nothing to sneeze at. He still makes the defense have to respect him if he's open. And that creates for others, right? So I really do think both of those guys are going to be important, but more so, I think Karis LeVert is going to be more important than Duncan Robinson for that two-way reason we talked about. So Devon says, did Malik get banned? We don't know yet, Devon. There's been some footage of him working out, getting in workouts, things like that. But I don't think anything has been said as of yet as far as legally. So I don't really want to comment on that because I'm not 100% sure. But he put on his Instagram story, I think it was yesterday, that I think, and you can quote me, he says, best believe I'm coming back better. So I don't know if that's just cap. I don't know if there's something to it, because there could be something to it to where we don't know about and he's just waiting for his name to get clear. He just can't speak on it. I don't know. We don't know. So we got to wait and see. Hopefully we get some news on that soon. But if he is able to come back, guys, and the Pistons are able to bring, because he's been wearing Pistons gear. Every time he's posting, it's Pistons gear. Pistons. So I think if he is able to come back, if he is clear, I'm not saying he will be, but if he is, I would imagine the team that he would likely come back to is the Pistons, even if it's on a discount, right? So I do think that will be a possibility. And if that happens, it makes you so much more deep. It makes you so much deeper. Your bench just got a lot deeper. Now you got Malik Beasley to go along with Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson. Like that really adds to your wing group off the bench. And I think that may give the Pistons options as far as what they may want to do going forward if they want to go get that big guy. Because even with Duncan Robinson's contract, I think the second and third year are player options or something of that nature, to where if it goes south, they can still move him if they need to, right? So we'll see. But the point is that the Pistons have a lot of flexibility, and they're in good position right now moving forward. And so there's no need to rush anything. When the right move comes along, They'll know it and they'll execute. All right, let's go to a few more and we are out of here, guys. Far Gone says, unspoken salary dilemma. Paying Ausar. Yeah. I mean, we had, he still has, that's next offseason though. That's next offseason. This offseason is about JD and JI, right? Because obviously they came into the league a year before he did. So the rookie extension eligible this summer. Ausar's next summer, right? So you're right. It's not something that the Pistons, I'm sure, are going to just dust under the rug. But right now, the focus has to be the guys on the table. And that's Jaden, Ivey, and Jalen Duren. And I'm sure that Trajan Langdon and JB Bickerstaff and everybody in the front office is kind of planning for how to handle that, because Ausar is definitely a guy you do not want to lose, period. 100% not. So, yeah, but it's a good point, Fargan. We definitely can't overlook it and act like it's not there, because it is. I just have confidence that they are already looking at it the same way we are, for sure, if not at a totally different level. Ray Floyd says, Ivey is a clutch player. So many buzzer beaters. You know what's crazy, Ray Floyd? By the way, I love the picture right there for sure. Shout out to J.I. It's crazy because the games where he had game winners, I believe in both of those games, he made the shot before the game winner. I think the game against the Raptors, I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the game winner against the Raptors, right? The floater. I think he made the bucket before that to put them in position. And the game against the Kings, when he had the 4-point play, I think he made the shot before that to put them in position. So it's not even just the buzzer beating. It's just the late game clutch play. Jaden is not afraid, man. If you need to put the ball in somebody's hands, if it's not Cade, I'm putting it in Jaden Ivey's hands and letting him go and getting out the way. Right? He's not always going to make the right plays, not always going to hit the game winner, but he has that fire, bro. He's fearless. He loves those situations. Trust me on that. He loves those situations. So, I think that kind of gets missed because of the actual game winner. But go back and look. He actually hit some key buckets, and the key bucket before the key bucket, right? So the boy's a gamer, clutch player, like you mentioned, Ray Floyd. He's, yeah. I hope they get these extensions done. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it at that. Fargan, appreciate you for the super chat, bro. If you got another question, definitely throw it in the chat, and I will get to it if I can before we end the stream. We got a few more comments we're going to get to, and then we will call it. Dwayne, what's going on, bro? Ray Floyd says, there are a couple of great fours coming out of the next draft, but we won't be able to get... Yeah, unless we get some crazy trade that allows us to get a high draft pick and we have an asset on our team that we just aren't using, right? Maybe a contender or something like that. Who knows, right? But yeah, and honestly, I'm okay with that, bro, because there's always going to be great players in great drafts. We have our great players from our great drafts, right? At some point, you got to move the ship forward. I'm not saying that you don't understand that, because I'm pretty sure you do, but you're making a point. But Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Ausar Thompson, Ron Holland, Isaiah Stewart, I'm good. We're good. Like, the point of the draft is to eventually get out of the draft, right? The point of getting lottery picks is to eventually not need them anymore, right? If you're needing lottery picks every single year, what are you doing in the front office, right? So, yeah, I definitely think that that's a possibility, but I think at this stage, there's no need for it. We have enough young guys on this team. Trajan has said he wants to build around that now, and that means adding vets, right? So at this point, Ray Floyd, you make a good point. They're probably not going to be there for the Pistons, and for me, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So let's move on. Ethan says, I don't want to lose any of the core 5. Okay, so I usually say core 4, but I hear you. Or I say core 6 because I include Ron and Stu along with the starters in Cade, Jaden, Ausar, and JD, right? But Ethan says, I don't want to lose any of the core 5. Cade, Ivey, Ausar, Duren, Holland. Dumb that it's a concern for players that we've drafted. That's a design flaw in the salary. Yeah, the salary, the CBA is now kind of geared toward guys or teams keeping their own guys, if possible. Like the days of top-heavy teams of getting three superstars or 3 max slots and then getting a bunch of mid-level exception guys to go. Like, those days are over. Those days are over, at least for now, for the foreseeable future, until the CBA changes again. Maybe the second apron isn't as impactful at the for when the rules change again for the CBA. But as of right now, it makes sense if you have confidence in your guys that you have, right, that you drafted that potentially be stars, you just keep those guys and write those guys out and invest in those guys and then add around the margins. We've seen, like I mentioned, the Thunder have done that. I know Shea wasn't drafted by the Thunder. He was drafted by the Clippers, but they got him when he was very, very young. Very, very young. And you see the guys they drafted around him, right? The Jalen Williams, the Chet Holmgrens. Like, you see how when you do it the right way with your homegrown guys, it can really be fruitful and it can really be sustainable for you for a long time. But it takes time to build it. I think this was Shea's sixth season, I think, this past season. So he wasn't like he was third year just coming into success, right? It took time for the organization to get right, to build the foundation, and to eventually be able to manifest it, as we're kind of seeing with the Pistons. So yeah, I think the trajectory is very similar. Dwayne Pierce says, I like it better this way where teams can, exactly. We just talked about that, Dwayne. 100%. I do too. I'm not mad at play mobility and being able to go where you want to play, but I just like homegrown guys. I've always been a fan of that. I feel like it makes contract negotiations easier, right? From the perspective of the front office and the player, just having that relationship, taking a chance on a guy, bring him to your team, growing him up. I think those are all things that are beneficial, and that can kind of endear players to the organization and vice versa, right? So totally with you, Dwayne. Ray Floyd says, can we afford our core? I really hope so. I don't know the numbers right now, Ray. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to cap up here. I do think it is possible if the Pistons are able to work their cap properly at the end of the season to be able to be in position to still keep Ausar and sign him to a rookie extension as well. But a lot of it is going to depend on what happens this coming season and what happens with the negotiations with Jaden and JI, or with Jaden and JD. But I do think they can. I think it's possible. It may put them close to the apron, the second apron, which I know they want to avoid at all costs because the apron is no joke. Like, that's like the Grim Reaper of the CBA. Like, you do not want to be there. We saw the Boston Celtics pretty much just shed $200 million in contracts, including Kristaps, who's now with the Hawks, right? Just to get away. Like, they won a championship. Bye. Bye. They didn't even think about it. They knew the importance because it affects things like draft picks. It affects things like 1-for-1 trades, and it's a lot that goes into it other than just having to pay a bill, an extra bill, like it has been in the past, right? So we'll see how it plays out, but I think they can do it, Ray. Dwayne says it took time for us to get right when we drafted Zeke. So exactly, and that's you taking us back a little bit, Dwayne, taking us back a little bit. But I wasn't around for when Zeke got drafted, but I did do my homework. I did watch him play. But you're 100% right. They were bad for a while. They were one of the worst teams, if not the worst team, when he got drafted. So it took time for them to go get the Bill and Beers and to draft the John Sallies and the Dennis Rodmans in the same draft, right? It took time and to get Joe Dumars. It took time to go get those guys. And those guys were not all big names coming out of college either. So you build it the right way, you get the right guys, it can definitely work and it can be sustainable. Last one from Dwayne says, gotta figure Tobias will come back for less after his contract, so it'll be interesting. Yeah, I think Tobias is going to start, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. I think I have no information on this, but it seems like there was an understanding that Tobias was going to sign a 2-year deal and play out that 2-year deal, right? I don't know for sure, but I just have that feeling, and I think that's okay. You know, $26 million a year, that's not a bad contract for him, especially now with the salary, the contract's booming, and we're like, because it takes time. It takes time sometimes to adjust to how much money these guys are making because it happens in waves. It happens in waves. Like, 25 million now is not that bad at all. A couple of years ago, even like, but with when things change and, the money goes up and the contracts go up and the TV deals go up, they're going to naturally make more money and as they should. But it just takes a while for us to get used to that jump, right? We got to see it with other guys getting signed and then we kind of get some relativity, right? But I definitely think he's going to start next year. I think they're going to honor that contract. I don't think he's going to get moved or anything like that. I think he's earned that because last year he played up to his contract pretty well, at least last year. He was solid on and off the court. He came on late, started slow, had a great finish to the season, right? Played big, battling cat every game, you know what I mean? Like, not getting bullied. He played very, very well for this team, getting the guys ready for the playoffs where they'd never been before, right? Getting them fitted for their suits and just the whole professionalism aspect. I think he's earned the right to play out his contract. And I think he does. I hope he does. So we'll see. Same, I just know my OGs told me and before that we were horrible. Yeah, don't listen to it, Dwayne. That's a thing of the past. Ethan says, I want Tobias to retire a Piston. He can play the backup for once okay. That's interesting. That's kind of what Dwayne was saying. So you guys think after this season, they'll sign him to a very reasonable deal and then he can be that backup for. I like that. We don't always look ahead past next season or past this coming season, but looking ahead, if he's open to that, we know he's going to stay in shape, right? He takes care of his body. He's a consummate pro. I would not mind that at all. It would still be kind of small even for a backup for. It's still kind of small, but because of his skill level and his experience and what he means to this team, I would live with that. And I would love to have him here and have him retire here because he's just a good guy. He's a good guy to have on your team, in your locker room, on your bench, all that. All right, y'all keep commenting, man. I'm trying to get these all out. Let's do a few more, and then we'll call it. Giddy, Kuminga, Thomas asking for $30 million is crazy to me. Yes, even with the jump in salaries, that's still like, come on, bro. I'm not giving Josh Giddey $30 million, bro. I'm not doing it. Kuminga is the more talented player, but I'm not giving him $30 million. I'm not giving Cam Thomas $30 million. If I'm not giving JD and Jaden $30 million, I don't know what the Pistons are going to, but if they don't, there's no way I'm giving these other guys that. Absolutely not. And that's no shade to them, but come on, bro. Come on, man. Everybody has to get paid. You know, everybody on the roster has to get paid. It's not just about one individual guy, but there's no way I'm doing that. I remember when Isaiah asked for $2.5 million and it was a problem. Right, William. And it took time, William, right, to get to adjust to a guy like Isaiah. That was the whole point I was making. Back then, $2.5 million was a lot, right? But eventually, as the game grew, the popularity grew, the jersey sales grew, the attendance in games, all those things happened, and you saw the money start to increase for these guys. They earned it, right? So it took a while, I'm sure, for you, William, to adjust from $2.5 million from Isaiah being a lot to now Josh Giddey, Kuminga, and Cam Thomas asking for $30 million. That's crazy. That is crazy, man. All right. Ray Floyd says he retired Piston. Yep. Okay, last one, Dwayne. And if Bobby is what we believe he is, we could have a nice four-man rotation. Or four rotation. It'll probably just be smaller than I like to be. Yeah, I mean, Bobby's 6'10", like Omari was saying. He's 6'10". He's a legit 6'10". Not 6'9" with shoes on. He's 6'10". I've seen him in person. He's 6'10". Big, and he's got a lot of talent. So with me, I think he could be the backup four. I think, once again, guys, when he's placed in an individual specific role, because we talked about it earlier when Omari was here, guys, real quick, and then we'll call it a night. Certain guys just have a skill set to where they can be good. They're good at a lot of different things when given the opportunity. You just don't know because you don't see them given the opportunity. But once they get it, you're like, wow, he can do that too. Wow, the game really comes easy to him. Wow, he can do a lot. You know what I mean? Like certain guys like Ron, you see they just have the ability to do a lot of different things well, right? But at the NBA level, but other guys are not built like that. I think Bobby is one of those guys who is going to be a very specific player in certain roles, knocking down shots, playing solid defense, playmaking when it's there. Because you mentioned he's not a guy who's just going to get past his guy. You gotta kind of build around him and put him in those positions to be able to be successful. And that's Simone Fontecchio role. That's literally all I see for him, is doing a better job of that. Knocking down shots more consistently, which he has to work on, right? Playing solid defense. He plays good help defense. He plays good team defense, right? And when he has the opportunity, being able to put the ball on the floor, attacking closeouts when there's penetration and the ball is skipped to him, or like I mentioned before, having Isaiah Stewart, who's one of the best screeners in the league. We've seen Isaiah Stewart last season just eliminating defenders with screens, just eliminating them, right? So you got that can get Bobby into space. Once he gets into space, what do? You got to pick your poison. He's going to find the right guy or make the shot. Or also dribble handoffs when Stu's bringing the ball to him and then setting the screen, and then Bobby has the momentum to get downhill in space with the defender is getting screened. So there are ways to get him the basket. There are ways to put him in position to be successful. And I think the Pistons are going to find out how to do that. And that's why I think he's going to be the backup for going into next season. But we'll see what happens. So we will call it there, guys. It's been a great stream as always. I appreciate Omari, as always, coming on, showing love, bringing the knowledge, man. Make sure you guys go follow Omari on Twitter. And make sure you guys go check out his articles with the Detroit Free Press. I've checked him out myself. Just like what I said with Eric Vincent, like these guys are really good. They really know what they're talking about, and they're about their business. So make sure you guys go support them as always. Go follow them and all that. So we will end it here, guys. It's been a great show with you guys as always. And y'all know the drill, man. Until next time, Detroit first, everybody. Peace.
And when you knock me down, I'm getting back up. Cause when I step on the floor, you know your time's up. I'm on my way up and I'm not gonna stop. We headed straight to the top in the low. I gotta face it, I got no time to waste it. It's my time now.